Welcome to the Earthworks podcast, where our team will share the jargon of carbon from many of our turf friends from the past 30 years.
Hey everybody, Kevin Hicks with Earthworks, coming to you with another podcast. We're going to do things a little bit differently today and revisit a couple of guests. I pulled some clips out from some conversations I've had in the past with a couple of guys that I respect a lot in their knowledge with water rights and how it affects the golf industry and sports turf. Started out with a clip from a recording that I did with Jeff Jensen, field staff rep for the GCSAA. We did that at the beginning of this year, and he gave us some really great summaries, 30,000 foot type views of what's going on in the industry right now and kind of how we can help the advocacy and look at some conservation tips and tricks. But just a good update as to where we stand with some of the water rights, especially in the Southwest, which is probably the canary in the coal mine as far as scarcity of water and how it affects the operations within a golf course. And then I'm going to pull some clips out from an interview I did in July of 21. It was one of our early podcasts. And Mike, if you don't know Mike Huck, he has been in the industry, I think he said 45 or 48 years. So a fairly good little stretch for him. He's recently retired. Actually, he's retired since the recording that we did with him, but still intimately involved with water rights issues. And I think his perspective on not only where we stand with water usage and maybe where we'll be in the next 5-10 years, but also just some conservation tips and things that he can suggest we all do on our courses, from audits to nozzling changes and things like that. And I thought it'd be a good time to rehash that because as the third section of this podcast, I'm gonna bring on my old friend Gerald Flaherty with Task Tracker. He's recently retired as well from being a golf course superintendent, and he and his business partner Jamie Sharp continue to improve and build upon the successes they've had at Task Tracker. And the reason I want him on is we've had a chance to talk, and they've introduced a new product to their portfolio called Turf Rad. And what Turf Rad is it's a technology that attaches to a mower and collects data points at an enormous rate as the mower is traversing around the golf course. And when those data points are collated into a map, the turf manager will be able to make adjustments and hopefully save some water. And what he's seeing in preliminary work with some beta testing sites is anywhere from 15 to 25% savings in water over a pretty short period of time, and obviously an improvement in playability as well. He's put it to the test at some golf courses that really could stand to benefit by significant conservation, not only monetarily, but in playing conditions. So I thought it'd be a good time to bring him back. He and Jamie have both been on the podcast in the past, but to bring him back and talk a little bit about this new product and how it integrates with Task Tracker, but also how it might be able to help all of you manage your golf courses a little bit better and save some money in the process, especially where water costs have gone so high. Anytime we can get 1 or 2% savings, it's significant when you're talking $500,000 plus in water bills throughout the course of a season. So with that, we'll kick off with Jeff Jensen's clip, and then I'll probably interject a little something at the end of that and introduce Mike Huck, and then we'll be semi-live with Gerald Flaherty after that. So thanks for listening. Hope you enjoy it. And be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And we'll start off with Jeff.
I guess going back to what you said, having a seat at the table, what are you seeing as an impediment that's slowing the industry down? It's with that respect.
Well, I think a couple of impediments. It costs a lot of money to save water.
Yeah.
Uh, Money here is a definite impediment. For the industry, if we're looking at, you're looking at a new irrigation system, putting something like that in, I mean, you're probably on the low end at $3.5 million right now.
Hmm.
You can probably get up to 6 million depending on your facilities. So that's a very big investment. So some of that time can be a difficult sell to your membership or to a management company or municipality, whatever the case may be. So money's an impediment there, for sure. Again, another major impediment to more water savings is the perception amongst golfers actually out there. And I find this particularly probably true in the Coachella Valley and the Palm Springs area, a little bit more than some other places. But, they don't particularly like to see the brown grass out there, the
Right.
dormant grass in the winters. Uh, you know, so that's an educational process, and I think that will happen over the years in different in areas like that. It's already happened in Southern Nevada. I think maybe they're a little bit more ahead of it here. Arizona's slightly behind us, but you're starting to see in Arizona for certain. You see most of the courses now are not overseeding roughs; they overseed tees, greens, and fairways. And in Nevada, basically anymore, there's a lot of golf courses that are not overseeding whatsoever at this point, or maybe just doing greens and tees. So no fairways,
Sure.
no roughs. Just do some painting in the winter, some turf colorants, and go away with that. And I think it's being more accepted here. Those turf products, those pigments are getting a lot better. Some of these guys are pretty masters at making it look pretty darn good.
Darn
And
right they are. Yeah.
that can be a huge savings. That can be a 30 to 40% water savings per year for a golf course if they're not overseeding. So,
Yeah.
I think that's part of the future here. But again, right now there can be some, you're dealing with a membership or you're dealing with homeowners also on the side of the
Mhm.
course. Maybe they're not even golfers. They look out and they say, well, it's hurting my home values. I don't like the turf being removed, or I don't like the golf course looking dormant in the winters. But I think if you look at the price of real estate, it doesn't reflect that.
Right.
In my areas, I'm certainly not living on a country club right now, so I can pretty much tell you that the price of housing hasn't gone down because of those. I think that's more of a perception issue than
Right.
anything. But those are a couple of the impediments. And I mean, again, this stuff is very expensive to do. It is expensive to save water, believe it or not. I mean, taking out turf is an extremely expensive proposition. When you're going through the whole aspect, it can run $3.50 to $4 a square foot to go through a turf removal project. Taking it out, putting it
Sure.
back, drip back in, natives back in, whatever you're going to do there. Architect fees, this and that, and so that's an expensive proposition as well to save the money. And again, so return on investment. I think you can make the argument, but anytime you're spending money, people look at it and
Yeah.
they question it a lot.
Well, the thing I see in that is it may be a big upfront cost, but the ROI is the repeated savings of water and I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with golfers in the Pacific Northwest that want to go down to see some sunshine in the wintertime, and they end up in Vegas or Phoenix, and oh my gosh, it's $300 to play around a golf, and my first question is, you do realize they're paying $1 million for water every year? Oh, that would have something to do with the cost then, wouldn't it? So, on the flip side, maybe it costs you $4 or $5 a square foot to reduce the turf acres, but that's a savings every year from there on out as far as irrigation water costs, right?
Oh, absolutely correct. You're going to be saving that money every year
Yeah.
now moving forward, and under the stipulations. Obviously, now with stipulations being so severe, you're going to be able to route that water to other areas of your golf course that need it,
Yep.
Specifically. And then, like I said, the return on, I think Pasatiempo and Santa Cruz. I know you're, just demanded well up there, and
Right.
you've been to that facility, top 100 golf facility in the country. They put in their own reclaimed water site
Yeah.
on facility site a few years ago, And looking at the overall cost of that, it was $10 million. Now that's a lot of money to a golf facility. But again, Pasatiempo is a $400 a round golf facility. It's got members as well. It's kind of a semi-private facility. But you started to look at that, and you started to look at the cost of water. And as it's risen up, Justin will be the one that'll tell you, their actual return on investment in that has gone down to about 6 to 7 years.
Yeah.
On a $10 million investment. So they're going to make up that cost, maybe let's say 7 years, and then from there they're going to start making huge return on investment on that infrastructure that they put into place. And that was a very difficult project that Justin and Scott Hoyt put together there, working with the government. A lot of government policy there that was crossing borders, counties, different stuff like that. But they were able to get that done, and wow, is it going to pay off for them in the future?
Yeah, and the amazing part about that story is that was largely proactive. It was voluntary that they sought that source of water out, knowing what was coming down the line, and to have that kind of foresight and that salesmanship, if you would, because like you said, that's a big nut for any golf course. I don't care how much you're getting for a round of golf. That $10 million bill is nothing to sneeze at when it's essentially something you can't see. You're going to see the results of not having it. And I think that was a great story that Justin told at the summit that I attended. That when I can't recall what year the restrictions really hit him.
2014, he had about a 50% restriction, and I think you saw the photos from what that looked like, and
that was prior to that infrastructure being in place, right? So they had a great case study right on the property. Here's what's going to happen if we don't have water.
Absolutely, and they had actually been, I think, a little bit of working on that in advance of that, but at the same time, that was kind of, I think, the selling point when it got to that aspect. When they started looking at it, that, hey, we're limited to only, as you saw, they were limited to only tees and greens. And it does get warm in Santa Cruz in the summers, and it was not the appearance that they were hoping for. And obviously they went to work, and were able to put a deal together that is going to secure them their water future right now. So
yeah, it's a pretty cool story, and I want to get Justin on again. I know he's been on once, kind of talking about the golf course, but I'd love to have him tell that story. And I still think he would say that it wasn't very easy to get that through. But certainly, after listening to the story again, it was well worth the efforts for sure. So what? This wasn't on my list, but I'm just going to throw this out. What 3, 4, 5 steps on an individual property? And I'm thinking of one in particular because I had a pretty big role in ours. But what 3 or 4 steps do you think a single facility could do if they're not in the Southwest to try to be proactive with respect to not only their water rights but consumption? Being aware of what's on the horizon. What kind of things would you suggest that clubs brush up on or be aware of before they have to?
Well, I think that's kind of maybe a twofold question. I think one of the first things, and it's outside of the policy area, but I think it's doing the simple things. It's making sure your heads are raised. It's making sure your nozzles are operating correctly. It's getting everything you can out of your irrigation system, whether that's making an upgrade. Not everybody can do a new system, obviously, but doing what you can to, doing irrigation audits, doing the small things that you can do basically in-house to help save water. Are you going to save huge savings off of that? Probably not, but you can probably see if you're doing that type of stuff, if you're raising your heads, if you're doing the nozzles, you're doing that stuff, you can see a 5 to 10% water savings. Probably from those activities. Look at some of the wetting agents you're using, the surfactants, start taking a look at that program, start testing some different ones that might work on your facility. As you're aware, Kevin, they work differently at different places. Again, and that's another thing that can save, another 10+% possibly, or right in that area. I don't think there's a silver bullet on that stuff, but I think it's a combination of efforts that can get you some severe savings. Now, from more of a larger picture standpoint, I think some of the things to consider. Now, in our region, obviously, I think one of the big things that we're starting to really look at in my region is that, we really need to start, specifically in California, we need to start really looking at moving our warm season grasses further north.
Right.
That's going to make a big difference. We're going to see probably, if you go from a cool season to a warm season grass, probably at a minimum of 25% savings for making that transition. And we are seeing more courses up to the Bay Area now starting to go to, the drought tolerant Bermuda grasses.
Yeah.
So that's a foresight type thing that I think, we really need to start looking at there. So from that standpoint, there's some of that. From a policy standpoint, the most important thing to me is that, you get your club together, whether it's a Greens Committee chairman, your superintendent, your GM, and you approach your water district. And the reason I say from an individual standpoint, and this is nationwide, probably in a lot of instances, it is different in some places, but in California, we have 435 water districts. So there's not a size one fits all approach to this. Everybody has different regulations and rules. And I assume that in a lot of parts of the country that operates like that as well. So whether it's with your local water district or it's your state water resources control board, I really recommend that you set up a meeting with them and get down to what's going on in the future in your area. Show them what you're doing. Have them out for a tour. Show them some of the things that are going on at your golf course. Show them your BMP manual if you've completed that. We have every BMP manual in the state has, and not in our state, in the nation actually right now. We have 50 of those guides in place right now. Every one of them has a water BMP in there.
Yeah.
Show those people what we're doing. Show them how we're saving water. Get out in front of the problem. And one thing I can guarantee you, there's a lot of people that are scared to do that, but when things come down, you're going to have that relationship already in place. And if they're knowledgeable on what you're doing, you're not going to be the one that gets targeted in this. You're going to be the one that they look to. And I kind of pointed out to, the Southern Nevada Water Authority, the Coachella Valley Water District, which we had a water summit meeting yesterday in Palm Springs. Both of them noted that the best irrigators are golf course superintendents. So, and that's because they've seen what we do and they work with us. And if they didn't have that knowledge, if we're not out there tooting our horn to say I guess to use that term, they don't know that. But, we need to get out in front of it. And, I think superintendents are always pretty humble guys. They don't always want to go out there and talk about how great they are and what they're doing and this and that. But at some point, we need to share those stories.
Yeah,
so I think that's really important.
I agree. And I'm glad you mentioned the BMP thing. I chaired our state committee for putting ours together. And, I just saw that as it goes back to what Armin Sooney told me years ago. It's so much harder for an outside agency to shoot you in the back if you're facing them with that BMP document in your hand. And it's not a difficult thing to put together. And, would certainly encourage everybody because it's a great document to take to those meetings. And like you said, tell your story.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was Jeff Jensen with kind of an overview of what I wanted to cover today as far as water conservation. Now we'll get into an interview I did with Mike Huck back in 2021. And Mike and I talked about some real specific things we could drill down to as far as savings for individual golf courses and how we can increase distribution uniformity and so forth. And then we'll get in with Jerry after that. So hope you listen along.
What are your biggest concerns in and out of golf as far as water and irrigation, and how does golf fit or maybe not fit into the big picture? I mean, obviously ag eats at the table first. Yep. And golf is not ag, even though we consider ourselves ag. It's a luxury. And so where are we? Especially, maybe California first, but certainly Arizona and Nevada are right in there as well.
I think the entire West,
I agree,
is a challenge in this area. And depending on how much water you have available, it's quantity, then quality are the concerns. And California And the grandfathered courses you know of in Arizona need to look more like the courses that have been built since 1980s in Arizona when the Groundwater Management Act went in.
Yep.
In California, we have, do you know who Craig Kessler is, our government affairs guy with the SCGA?
I don't.
Craig would be a great interview for you sometime on the non-golf aspects of the politicking of water and things like that. And I can set you up with his.
That would be great.
His contact. But we did what Craig liked to call a preemptive strike, and they hired me a few years ago to draft kind of a white paper of how do we approach the water, the MWELO, as they call it, the Model Water Landscape Ordinance, the WELO, Water Efficient Landscape Ordinance, pardon me, from a golf aspect in the future. And we met, had conference calls back then before Zoom with all the chapters in California. And I said, look, the best way to save water on a golf course is not to irrigate some area.
Yeah.
To go to desert style landscapes. And the idea that we think that we can irrigate 120 acres that are not all in play.
Or more.
Yeah, or more, up to 160. There's a couple courses. There's one course down the desert that's 180 or 200, I think. And I'm sure there's some like that over in Phoenix. Some of those older ones have got, I call them the par fives could double as a runway for a 747. They're so wide over Sun City and some of those places.
Yep.
And I said, I think we try and draft some things to get us down into that 90, 100 acre total, 90 acres on the course and another 10 for a range practice area, something like that. And I said, we try and word it so that it's workable for people, that when you're doing major renovations, this kicks in. You're going to renovate over an acre or 3 acres of turf or whatever. I forget what number we finally picked, but we went and looked at code and stuff like that in different cities to see what they kind of force you to get permitted on, and what would drive the bus more or less would be a permit. And we drafted this language, and everybody kind of came to agreement on it and said, look, we're going to be doing this anyways because of the cost of water.
Yeah.
Cost of water is getting so astronomical in the Southwest. And I know you said that, Northwest, where you're at, pretty inexpensive for energy and water, but down here, it's a different story. I mean, we've got courses spending $500,000 a year for water. And that isn't even pumping anything yet,
Yeah.
That's just get the water into the pond, so to speak. So we drafted this language and we proposed it to the state Department of Water Resources. They have not accepted or rejected anything yet. It's in the packet of information going forward with this next phase, I guess you'd call it. They really don't outline when the phases are happening, but they're supposed to go through this every 2 years. And our second year is up from when we did this now, I guess. So it's going into the third year since I did that package, and we submitted it through Craig, and because Craig's been our representative there, because he's really good at, like I say, he's really good at the politics end of it. He's a former attorney.
Okay.
He understands how these regulators speak. And he can also use it as a buffer and say, look, I need to go back to our industry professionals in this area and discuss this. And it buys us some time to work on it, so to speak. And so, but we're going to have to start looking more like Arizona golf courses. Yeah. There's no doubt about it. And a lot of courses did in the last drought that happened 5 years ago.
Right.
But that was driven by rebates, turf reduction rebates. I don't know if those are going to be available this time around, unless it gets really, really ugly again. I don't know.
Well, I had Gina Rizzi on the podcast a couple months back, and we talked about something similar. And the unfortunate reality, I think, because we're not the decision makers as turf managers, we're the conduit, we're the communicators, right? And unfortunately, I think, and we were talking specifically about environmental concerns, but water certainly fits in this conversation.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, unless we're priced out of it or legislated into it, there's not a lot of incentive to make those significant changes, and we need to be better than that.
you're 100% correct, Kevin. You know, back during the drought that we had in 14-15 era, a lot of courses closed. A lot of them blamed it on water and the price of water, but it was equally on the downturn at the time in play, in rounds of play. So it was a combination of the two. The cost of maintenance was skyrocketing, with the cost of water being, you know, at least 25 to 50% or 30%, let's say 25 to 30% of your total operating budget when you figure labor and everything, because we have now got, you know, a $15 an hour wage that we're working towards for all the labor. So that's catching up too. And they blamed it on that, but you know, it was a combination of the two. It was the water and it was the cost of doing business, or not doing enough business, I should say, probably. But yeah,
the water cost may have been the straw, but there were certainly
exactly. There were other mitigating factors, we could say.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So with the current dire status of drought conditions, especially in California, my gosh, although I would advocate that the Pacific Northwest is going to be in trouble here this year.
Very possible.
But so where do you see the state legislators prioritizing? I don't know if that's the right word. Prioritizing access to water for golf.
Well, I think it'll probably run down the same lines as it did the last time, that all outdoor irrigation is subject to conservation cuts as we move farther into this drought. The big problem is the drought on our supply chain, Colorado River being one of them. Right. Not just Sierra Nevada's low this year.
Yep.
It's really affecting Northern Cal. Southern Cal, the drier climate, is not as affected because for 20 years they've been pushing conservation rebates with indoor appliances, outdoor landscapes, you know, the turf rebates. They've been doing that for residentials and all that. But now the big one is the Bureau of Reclamation's 1922 Colorado River Compact between the upper and lower basin states, and how that water is divided. California gets the biggest chunk of it because it was based upon population back in 1922.
Yep.
And there was so many more people already in California versus Arizona versus Las Vegas area, the Southern Nevada area that gets water. And so that's probably going to get renegotiated, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Eventually. I don't know how soon. It's been talked about. I was going through an old presentation, just kind of regenerate my memory on some of these things, because I had newspaper articles dating back 20 years ago. They were talking about this renegotiation on the Colorado River. Well, it's kind of happened. Arizona and Nevada had to come to an agreement on leaving some water behind in Lake Mead. And California kind of did too, but it's doesn't impact California as much as it does Arizona and Nevada. And Arizona's in real trouble right now, or getting close to real trouble. They're asking farmers to go back to groundwater that were on cap water.
Really?
Is my understanding. Yeah.
Is that a sustainable solution?
Probably not. And that's what the articles are coming out about, is we're going to go back to drawing water uncontrolled. You know, what are we going to do?
Well, and the harsh reality is, you know, we can negotiate, we can talk, we can wheel and deal on this, but California being at the end of the line, if there's no water in the river, you can argue all you want.
Well, you know, Mexico is supposed to get a portion of the Colorado River,
right?
But it's been dry going out that far for decades.
Yeah.
You know, they do. I think now they are being forced to release more water and give Mexico a certain amount of it for that region down there at the, what do you call it, the not the peninsula, but anyways, at the end of the run of the Colorado. But they really, you know, it's a mess. It's really frightening in some respects.
So you deal primarily with California, Arizona, Nevada.
Yeah, mostly.
So let's say of those three, who faces the most dire situation as far as supply goes? It sounds like Arizona.
Right now it's Arizona and Nevada.
Okay.
Because Nevada only gets 300,000 acre feet a year. Arizona gets 2.8 million, or they're slated to get 2.8 million acre feet a year, and California gets 4.4 million acre feet a year. And so California's got a bigger buffer as far as agricultural water that they can pay the farmers and make the farmers rich without even planting a seed for their water. I've had a friend of mine who said for years, he's a wastewater guy, he says, them farmers down in the Imperial Valley are going to be driving Cadillac pickup trucks just to, after they sell the municipal areas water, the coastal areas
and they
water.
haven't harvested a crop in years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, says they're going to be able to, because they pay, I don't know what their rates are, but it's next to nothing compared to what we pay over on the coast. But a lot of what we pay on the coast is the cost of handling it and pumping it.
Right.
Some of it's gravity fed, but we got to get up over ranges of hills and mountains. So the energy costs there, and then to treat it and disinfect it and purify it for drinking purposes. But it's really interesting. And, the one way, or not Arizona, but Nevada, Southern Nevada's gotten by is they get what they call return flow credits. So what you shower with at the casino today ends up down in my faucet in a few days. Because for every gallon they recycle and return back, at a specified quality back into the river, because actually running down the river purifies it more.
Right.
They get take another gallon out. So there is the consumptive use of 300,000 gallon or 300,000 acre feet. If they can turn 100,000 acre feet from the sewer back in, then technically they can keep pulling 100,000 acre feet back out. So I don't think anybody in California or Arizona has that potential luxury because they're not close enough to the river. Right. The canals bring it all into the urban areas,
sure. And that's essentially a 1-to-1 return.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
For every gallon I return, I can take another gallon out.
Okay. And that's direct discharge once it's treated back into the river.
And to my knowledge, it's pretty much everything they dump back into the Colorado River that's been treated, they can take another one out upstream.
Wow, never knew that. So what does golf do? What does landscape do? I mean, I know roughly some of the statistics of acreage of land taken up by golf courses versus turf in general. I mean, it's a spit, but obviously we're a focal point.
Yes.
Will the same restrictions and adjustments apply to home lawns as they do to sports turf, to golf, or are we kind of unique?
No, I think the same restrictions are going to apply to ornamental turf. Southern Nevada just banned ornamental turf that does not serve a function like as a sports field or a whatever in municipal median strips and things like that. So,
right.
And there's been talk of doing the same thing is kind of written into the California after the last drought, that median strips and stuff like that, no more turf. Although there's probably some existing. In fact, I know there is. I know of one that has a huge median strip going through their city of turf. But, excuse me, I think we're just going to see a continuation of that to put in drought tolerant landscapes, particularly in front yards, like new developments did in Arizona. Yeah. Backyard only turf where you're going to have the kids out there, the dogs out there playing on it. If it's just for focal point, it's no longer going to be part of the deal. And the big part of that challenge is getting the developers on board with that, because the homeowner doesn't want to see that. So they don't want to buy the house that's doing that. So unless everybody's forced to do it, nobody's going to do it.
Goes right back to what we said. Yeah, that's exactly right.
It's kind of like golf members. It's the same thing. It's, when we were going through the drought the last time, I remember we set up these committees with the LA Department of Water and Power, the San Diego, City of San Diego, and the Coachella Valley Water District. We brought the golf people in with the water people, and how can we work together and get through this thing? And I remember one of the fellows from the Coachella Valley said, here's my dilemma. He says, my members come from all parts of Canada and the Northeast, and they want to see green, green, green.
Right.
And he said, I told them we're in a drought. And they said, well, if I wanted to see desert around the edges of the golf courses like you guys are proposing, I would have moved to Tucson or Las Vegas or Phoenix. I wouldn't have come to Palm Springs. So I think it's going to be a generational education factor. The next generation of golfers is going to see it better.
Yeah.
Because, as we boomers, I'm the tail end of the boomers. I'm not exact tail end of it, but as we go on to our happy hunting grounds, it's going to self-correct. That and the price of water. As the price of water goes up, but that's another one of the oxymorons of the day in California is the Bay Area. They're up to like $4,000, $4,500 an acre foot. Down here in Southern California, we're probably in the $2,000 to $2,500 range on average for a lot of municipal supplies. Yeah. You go down to Palm Springs, and where they need it, the most of it, they are, I want to say they're like $300, $400 when they figure the replenishment fee. So it's just kind of strange, but it goes back to a law or legislation in California. You can't charge more for a utility than it costs to provide it to the customer. So if it only costs you $300 an acre foot to replenish your groundwater with all the power and the labor and the overhead and what all that factored in, that's all you can charge your customer to extract that water and pay the replenishment fee. Whereas for us over on the coastal areas, because they're pumping that water again from the Colorado River all the way over,
right?
It's a 4-hour drive basically in a car, or better. You are paying for all that energy and all the infrastructure maintenance and all that, and that's where our prices go up.
Well, we've got some great monitoring tools now that we didn't.
Oh, do we ever? Yeah.
Between the portables and the in-grounds and.
Yep.
There's some amazing technology that
there really is. And I think that's the next level as the price on the in-ground stuff comes down and we can put more of those sensors out there. We can ratchet it down to a tighter and tighter level. I remember I ran into Sean Emerson at the show several years ago when they were fooling around with the UGMO water sensors when they were really new and hit the market. And so I stopped him and I said, okay, so give me the straight skinny.
Right.
I said, what's it done for you? And he goes, I equate it to a gasoline gauge on my car. He goes, it tells us if we've got enough left in the tank to get to the next day or not. He said, we thought we were dialed in with weather stations and ET. He goes, we've saved another 10%. Or at least reduced, by 10% just with the soil moisture sensing. And I said, that's all, that's what I want to hear. I want to hear what it really meant.
Right. That's an easy return on investment too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, the cost of water over in Arizona is as bad or worse than Southern California in some cases.
My frustration up here in the Northwest is the fact that these communities haven't mandated some kind of a rain shutoff for systems, and commercial are probably bigger violators of this, but it drives me nuts.
Yeah.
When it's pouring down rain and there's everybody's irrigation is lit up. For $15 you could have a mini click that that would shut the system off until
But we talk about some of that stuff, and on a large scale, it depends on your local climate, your microclimate or whatever you want to call it for rain, because you can have areas like down in the desert. We were talking about this. Well, how much rain did you get last year? And one guy gets 6 inches, one guy gets 2 inches, one guy, and it's because where they are in the desert, the clouds come in, they back up against the mountains, they drop more rain. And we have the same thing in Southern California. So depending on how large of a scale, but yeah, you could put those out on. For $15, you could put them on every controller out in the field practically, and make it worthwhile.
Yeah.
And that's the whole smart clock technology for residential and commercial. There's something that a superintendent can do. if they have a club meeting, educate their members on the benefits of that, because the idea isn't to get the number exact. It's to shave off that set it and forget it that happens in the shoulder season after the demand goes down. And they did a study on that down here at Irvine Ranch Water District years ago, where they took all these neighborhoods that were built by the same developer, same size yards and stuff. And the first neighborhood, they did nothing. They just monitored their water use, and they could figure out the irrigation use based on average use in the house. Second one, they sent a postcard to people in that neighborhood to please readjust your clock now that we're getting into fall or whatever. The third one, they went and they retrofit with the smart irrigation controllers that just did it. And the savings were, like none. We got some pretty good savings with the postcard to remind people, but not everybody did it. But over here, it was like significant compared to the same number of houses, same area irrigated. So just those types of things can even help the bigger picture.
Okay, so we've heard from Jeff Jensen, and we also have got a nice clip from Mike Huck. That was back in July of 21. And to kind of dovetail into that, I thought I'd bring my friend Gerald Flaherty back on. We've had a podcast together before, but some things have changed in his life. Number one, he's retired from being a golf course superintendent and kind of focusing his attention with his business partner, Jamie Sharp, on Task Tracker now. So how's retirement? Doesn't really seem like it, probably.
I guess I should say I resigned from the golf course, because Jamie and I have been pretty busy. And I will say that our club was really good letting us do both for 10 years. And we both decided it was time. It was getting difficult to do both. And and it's been nice to be able to just focus on Task Tracker. And we're going to talk about some other things as well. So it's been busy. I kind of thought I'd sleep in a little bit more than I am.
Not so much. In fact, you said before we hit the record button that you're on a plane tomorrow for the Carolinas meeting, and which is always a big one.
And before that, I have a demo at 5 a.m.
Yeah. So I guess it's not retirement. It's just reshuffling.
I just get up for different things now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the reason I wanted to bring you back on, besides we're good buddies and it's good to see you again, is you've added something to the portfolio of Task Tracker that I think is really exciting, and it plays right into the conversations that we pulled clips out of for the rest of this podcast. Talk about Turf Rad, how you found it, how you stumbled on it, and how you're going to integrate it with what you're already offering.
Well, it's really weird how we stumbled onto it. It's just my luck, I suppose. But, before we stumbled onto it, Jamie and I have always been looking for something. We track everything. So we need to figure out a way to start tracking moisture. Who can we work with? And we looked at some different avenues, some different companies, but we really could never find anything that checked all the boxes. And we kind of gave up on it a little bit. And then out of the blue, one of our members has a grandson that's part of Turf Rad. And they just, hey, you guys should talk to Jerry and Jamie. And we're like, yeah, we'll talk to them, because it's always like we're on Shark Tank at the club. And so we did. And, we're like, hey, does this thing work in turf? And these guys didn't know anything about golf. So they're like, I don't know. What do you mean? So that's how we got started. We're like, why don't you give us one of those things and let me try it at my course? And that's when I was obviously a superintendent. So Jamie and I went out and did some homework on it and tried it many times, and thought, this could really be good in turf. So that's kind of how we got started.
So let's back up a little bit. I kind of jumped ahead of myself there. Explain what Turf Rad is. What makes it unique? You and I have kind of gone over this a little bit, but explain to everybody else what makes this product unique and how it generates information.
Well, it's called L-band technology, and I'm not going to go too deep into it because, as you know, Kevin, I'm not very tech savvy, but I have learned a lot about this, and it's L-band technology. It's not new technology, but it's certainly new to the golf course. Okay. This is technology that's been used in the late 90s with the European Space Agency and NASA. And they were using it up in satellites, just measuring, moisture in the earth, but it was in gigantic swatches of the earth, 15 kilometers, that sort of thing. So Derek House, he's the CEO or the developer of Turf Rad, and he's like he wanted to use it for measuring things a little bit more pinpoint than that. And when they first, what he did was he miniaturized it, made it really small, and then he's been out measuring ice caps and using it in the rainforest and that sort of thing. And that's where we came in. So it went from the size of say your office up in a space satellite down to the size of maybe your computer monitor.
Right.
And I guess what makes it interesting and appealing is it's very easy. It's the size of your computer monitor, and you're going to put it on the back of a piece of equipment. Now, me at my club, I put it on the back of a fairway mower. We're mowing fairways anyway, so when we're out mowing fairways, this thing is taking 7 readings per second of what we're driving over top of, and that's where that L-band technology is coming in. So what it's doing is it's measuring the microwaves that are naturally emitted from the earth, and it's giving you a calculation of what the moisture content is in your soil. And I know a lot of people get a little alarmed. Oh, microwaves, is that going to mess up my guys mowing fairways? We're not microwaving burritos or anything like that. We're just measuring the naturally emitted microwaves that are coming out of the earth. They're coming out anyway.
Sure.
And that's like about the simplest form of how it works. I like it because we already got guys out mowing fairways.
Yeah,
we do have some guys that maybe don't. I mean, I always thought everybody mowed fairways 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But apparently some guys don't. So some guys may mow 2 days a week. We have one guy that only mows 1 day a week. So what he did is he put it on the back of a utility vehicle, and he actually made an array of sensors. So it's almost like a spray boom. So he has 3 on the back of his cart, and he goes out and scans every day. And he does it in about, I know it's under 2 hours, maybe an hour and a half, something like that,
Okay.
hour and 45 minutes. So it's just I mean, it's pretty cool. It's, we're all used to going out with our point sensors and getting, I mean, you go down the middle of your fairway and you measure. If you're lucky, you measure 30 points before the radio goes off, and you're off and running up to the clubhouse or out to a broken pipe or something. And so this is getting thousands upon thousands of measurements, and it's being done every time you're sending out your fairway mowers or your whatever your utility vehicle, whatever you have it mounted to.
So and we've discussed this a little bit as far as kind of the collection width, if you will, and it basically covers one unit. Correct me if I'm wrong. One unit covers essentially the mowing swath of the machine. Is that fair to say?
Just picture, and maybe if we have time, I'll show you a picture. But picture a monitor on the back of your fairway mower, and it's shooting down at, I think it's at 37 degrees or something like that, the angle.
Right.
And what they say is it's like a flashlight. So from the center of your monitor going out, so it's maybe a 2-foot swatch, and then you're doing 7 measurements per second as you travel. And then what they do is they're going to stitch that together. So if you're coming up and then you come back down the fairway, they're going to stitch it together and extrapolate what your moisture is between those measurements, and it's also going to give you a reading of your uniformity. So if you have measurements just off the chart, because like when you go out with your point sensor and you go here and you measure and you get 20% moisture, and then you move it 6 inches and you get 33% moisture.
Yeah. What I'd like to know, and typically I don't lean too hard on our YouTube portion of the podcast, but I think you've got a little bit of maybe a couple of slides to show that kind of depict how the map is produced. But talk first about so the mower comes in off the golf course. What happens to the data then? How's it offloaded, and what's because you guys created some of the software to generate the mapping, right?
Yeah, we did. We did a lot on our end for and it's in Task Tracker, so everything's channeled through Task Tracker.
Okay.
because we wanted to make sure it was, usable and easy.
Right. Right.
And that's where I come in, because I know easy. But yeah, so like when the mower is out in the field, it's gathering data. As soon as it leaves the radius that you set around your maintenance facility, as soon as you leave that radius, it's going to start measuring moisture content. So say if you're measuring your fairway moisture content, as soon as you pull into your fairways, it starts collecting that data. It's not relying on the internet or anything like that, but it's gathering data and it's housing the data. Now, when you come back into the shop and you enter that circle, that's where your Wi-Fi is going to pick it up. So we, at our club, we made it where, the perimeter around the maintenance facility is where the guys come in, they wash up, they go fuel up and everything. So in the time that they're doing that, it's downloading. So it takes about 10 minutes to download now.
Okay.
So it's pretty, and then it's going to download via Wi-Fi, and then it's going to be up for viewing on Task Tracker probably within 30 minutes. I say 30 minutes because that's pretty conservative, but it's more like 15 to 20 minutes.
So what I'm envisioning then is, as soon as it crosses that start line, if you will, it starts recording, but it doesn't really know what it's recording at that point. It's just collecting data, right?
It does know what it's recording through GPS. So It knows where it is. So that sensor has a GPS, and it's pretty accurate. But I mean, obviously it has to be, because you're going to be watering off of that. So
of course, but it doesn't know that it's in the parking lot versus the fourth hole. So how do you integrate that?
Well, it does know as soon as it leaves the perimeter. Once it gets into the fairways, everything's mapped out. So we're going to have, when you guys sign up, we're going to ask for different things, shape files, maybe Mapbox. We'll get some documents from Mapbox. Everybody's always doing renovations, so they might have some drone footage that we'll take.
Sure. Okay.
We also have people. If you have nothing, that's not a big deal either. I mean, we had one guy send all his paper maps in, and we figured it out.
Okay.
Of course, that was pretty difficult, but we kind of lean against that a little bit, but this guy really wanted to give it a go, and that's what we had to work with, and we stitched it together, and it's worked out pretty well, actually. So
I told you on the phone the other day that I showed my wife Julie the little slideshow that you sent to me, and she's learned a lot through osmosis, being married to a superintendent for this long, but she's not a turf head like the rest of us, and she looked at the map that was created, and I don't know if you can pop that up now, but she looked at the map and said, "Holy cow, I totally get it." And to me, that spoke volumes as far as her ability to see the value in that map, and how it visually depicts what's going on with respect to moisture. Yeah, it's pretty easy. I mean, it's user friendly, and Jamie has always said, even when we first started Task Track, anybody can collect data. It's displaying data that's the real key. Yeah. And I get it. Over the years, I get that. When he first said it years ago, I'm like, yeah, whatever. I didn't know what he meant, but now I get it. Since not everybody might be looking at this visually, what are we looking at here? So you can see that I'm looking at hole number 1, which is, I believe it's this hole right here. Now you can see over here, let me just move this icon. You can see over here we have our gauges. So 5% moisture, very red. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. Blue is wet, red is dry. I mean, that's pretty much what you're looking at. You're looking at Mike's overlay of his course, and then you can see his shape files for his irrigation and everything like that. All his fairways are shaped out in there. But what Mike does is he's looking at this at the end of every day when he's deciding when and where to water, how much. So you can see here, he's got a lot of alerts. These are all dry spot alerts. Now, if I hover over this, you can see he's at 11.2% moisture. So I think Mike has his set up. Those are alerts he's had set up for certain parameters,
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
So I think when we send it out of the box, we'll send it out where it's going to alert you at 17%. Because that's what I did my course at back in the day.
Okay.
But you know what? 17%. Everybody's learning that that's not as dry as we thought it was.
Yeah.
So now we can go a little bit lower. So Mike, I think Mike has his set at 13%. And then if you flip on the other side, let me see if I can find, one way down here, this hole right down here, he's got a wet alert. So I can click in on this and you can see it's going to tell him he's at 33%.
Okay.
So I know he's got that set up at 30%. He wants to be alerted that it's getting too wet. At 13%, he wants to be alerted that it's getting too dry. Now, what's pretty cool about this is you can go back and you can look and see how it was a couple of days ago too. So we have this up here. This is daily overview, but we can also go back to compare view. And let's see if this works. I have to select the whole. So we're going to say number 1 fairway.
So as you're doing that, I'm going to ask you a question. So with the enormous amount of data points that you're collecting on one given collection, being that of a mowing, are you storing all this data in the cloud? Is that something that the user has to use?
This is where it gets a little bit technical. No, it's all going into Microsoft's Azure.
Okay.
So I mean, like, if you're using this for 5 years, and Kevin, you know how it is. I mean, maybe you're hosting a tournament. Hey, let's dry it out like it was last year. Let's take a peek and see what it was last year. Oh man, we were running the fairways at like 9% moisture. We can really start backing it down.
Okay.
So you can go back, to a couple of days, or you can go back a couple of years, depending on whatever it is you want. So you could see here. Let me hit this compare view. So you could see here I have 2 different dates. November 7th. This is what it looked like on November 7th. So he probably had a rain event because he likes to keep his course fairly dry. And then we go over and take a look at it on November 10th. So you can see the difference he made. And like he's been using this for the entire summer. So he knows that, you know what, I could probably not water for 3 or 4 days and I can get it down to about 8-9% moisture before I really have to start worrying, because you know how it is. It's Friday, let's just put some water on so I can relax this weekend.
Right.
Well, now you can take a look at the facts and say, you know what, I can still relax. I don't have to panic. It's okay.
That is really powerful.
Yeah. So that's just pretty cool. It's called Compare View.
Okay.
And we have a couple other little things like that, but it's just cool. I mean, and it's just going to get better and better as we get more users, just like we did with Task Tracker. I mean, Mike has given us some good feedback, and we have a handful of other guys, really good guys that we lean on. They helped us a lot with Task Tracker.
Okay.
And they've been great.
So let's get down to nuts and bolts then, because I don't want to take too much of your time, because I know you got a chicken in the oven. But
I literally do. When the internet went down last time, I went and took it out.
Exactly. But so it's obviously compatible, and it sounds like it's reliant on the use of Task Tracker. Is that correct?
Yeah. So they're exclusive with us. They have a patent on this. You're not going to get it anywhere else, and anywhere in the States and Canada. And I'm not quite sure, maybe Bermuda and the Bahamas and stuff like that, but you're going to run it through us. And the reason why they wanted to run it through us is because, well, for one, we could put it into our platform, and 2, they know we have a good reputation with the superintendent.
Yeah.
So, and we all know, you and I know that superintendents talk. So,
right.
And Jamie and I didn't want to attach our name to this until we really knew that it worked and felt comfortable with its potential, and so that's why we're attached with them. So
I don't really want to get into costs today, because I think that's something that you can work with the individual user on. But you launched at GIS this year, and I remember you came up to my booth and you were really pumped about this, and you made me walk down with you and look at it, and the booth was a buzz. But what kind of things are you hearing from users? I mean, you're out, you're working with some guys pretty closely right now as far as return on investment, savings of water, that kind of thing, because that's what I see, and that's why I kind of stitched this interview back with with Mike and Jeff's interview from the past. So what are you hearing?
Well, as you know, and I know, everybody wants to water better. I mean, everybody just wants to irrigate better, but we're finding out that everybody has different reasons for wanting to irrigate better. I mean, some guys, they're paying for water. I mean, they're paying for every gallon of water. So they're looking for, if we can use a couple 100 acre feet a year less, I mean, we can have some great savings. If we have guys, the guys that are purchasing water, they're paying for this probably in, I want to say, 3 months. Now, me at the Valley Club, we get all our water. It's surface water. It's from the river.
Right.
But the way our course works is we have to pump it around. We have to move it around a lot. We're using a lot of electricity. Our ROI on this was within 1 year, and we're not even open an entire year. I mean, we're already blew out the irrigation system.
Wow.
So we had a return. It was a wash by the end of the season.
So to do it right,
some guys that
to do it right, how many units do you suggest a person have for an 18-hole golf course?
That's really subjective to what they're doing. I mean, we're 27 holes. We have 5 fairway mowers. I only put it on 3 fairway mowers because we only had so many sensors, and I wanted to make sure everybody else got them. But I wish I was a little bit greedier and took all 5 of them.
Sure.
Because I hate it when the data comes in and it's like, oh, I wish I knew what the moisture was on 15 fairway, but we didn't mow that with a sensored mower. So
Okay.
if you're mowing fairways and you have 3 fairway mowers and you want to put it on your fairway mowers, order 3.
Yeah.
If you want to put it on the back of your cart and send a guy out to do it, maybe buy 1 or 2 and make a mount and do it that way. I'll show you a slide of what it looks like, Kev.
So do I own the hardware, or am I leasing the hardware?
Yeah. So the hardware you're going to purchase.
Okay.
And then you're going to pay an annual fee for the subscription.
Okay.
Because we're going to be storing data and all that kind of technical stuff that I don't really like to get into. But
so what you've got here is you've got a lightweight fairway mower, a triplex, and you've got the machine the monitor mounted on the back of the machine off of the cowling on the engine. So is it a permanent mount, or is it something we can move around?
We tried a couple different things at the Valley Club when we first tried it last year. We had suction cups back here because it's obvious it's fiberglass. But the contour of the different kind of hoods on the back of different, because we have a couple different types of fairway mowers. I'm not going to get into what we have.
Sure.
But the contour, it was trying to come off. All 4 suction cups weren't staying on. So what we did, in 2.0 was we got some metal plates with some 3M adhesive, and we stuck that on the back of the fairway mower. Okay. And then we have magnets just click right on there. So if you want to take this thing off and maybe put it on your approach mowers, it's not a big deal. It's just put some metal plates on there and you can pop it right on.
Got it. Well, that seems pretty easy to integrate in different areas of the golf course.
Yeah. And we have taken it off and pulled that 3M off of there. And we actually had to do it on all the fairway mowers, and we didn't pull any paint off, and the mechanic was okay with that. So.
All right. Very cool. Well, this is just kind of an introductory. I think, it's water's always been an issue for me, and certainly something that I'm pretty cognizant of. And I've been excited to talk to you about this. And how do we get a hold of you if somebody's interested in learning a little bit more and the cost and so forth?
Well, the Task Tracker users, those guys know how to get a hold of us.
Yes.
Jamie and I, we have our cell phone numbers on the website. You can always just reach out, Google ASB Task Tracker, and you can find our contact information. Or you can go right on to Turf Rad's website and book a demo. It'll go right to Jamie and I. Jamie and I do all the demos. So I like to talk to the superintendents because I'm pretty excited about this.
Yeah.
Kev, one thing I didn't say was, I was saying a lot of people use it. Everybody wants to save water for whatever reason. But one consistent statement I'm getting is playability.
Yeah. 100%.
Man, the playability has just been going through the roof. And Jamie always says, I can sell a shaft in the pro shop for $800 if I tell the guy he can get 10 to 15 yards. We got guys, I mean, we got guys rolling an extra 20, 30 yards at our club.
Yeah.
And even me personally, I moved back a tee because I'm getting older. I retired. So I was kind of up on the more forward tees this year. I went back to where I was 2 years ago. So
well, and that's a great point. And, the ROI doesn't just have to be dollars, right?
Well, ROI is happy members, man, because happy members,
you got it.
Maybe you can keep your job a little bit longer.
You got it.
Because it's tough.
Anything you see in the future with this technology? I mean, it's measuring moisture. Is it only measuring moisture? I mean, you getting conductivity and salts and things like that, or is it? Well,
what I will say is the salts aren't going to affect it any. We don't measure salts yet. We've talked about it, but what the point sensor probes, they're measuring between two little probes, and the salts will affect that.
Yeah.
But I don't really worry about that too much, because even if you get on a bathroom scale and you're 5 pounds heavier, you're getting fat. And you're like, hey, I don't know if this scale's right, but I know I'm gaining weight. And that's kind of the way it is with really all the sensors we use.
Yeah.
Where do I see it going? I see it being easier with the irrigation. Everybody always asks, are we going to tie in with one of the big irrigation companies? That's really up to them.
Sure.
I see it being easier where we maybe can print out a sheet saying, hey, give me all my adjustments I need today.
Right.
And then just pop them up and take a look at it and go into your irrigation system and make the changes.
Cool.
There's a lot of things, that we got going on, like that compare view. We put that in because somebody wanted it. And, I don't even know where it's going to go, but the superintendents will tell us, and hopefully we can get it to where it needs to be. That's one of the reasons I think Jamie and I have been successful with Task Trackers. We've listened to the industry.
Yeah, it's really almost kind of a crowdsourced type product where you just keep reacting to what guys are, how they're using it and what they're looking for. So I won't keep you anymore, Jerry. This has been good. A great introduction. I encourage anybody that's interested to reach out to him and learn a little bit more and look at the website. But really cool technology. I'm glad you guys got a hold of it. And it, like you said, it integrates really well with what you already offer. And I'm excited for you guys. I think it's going to be
really cool. I mean, and if you guys want to give me a call or Jamie and I a call, just reach out. We love talking about it. We're really excited about it. And there's so much I could just really tell you about it. Like Kevin said, I got a chicken going on in the other room. So.
Perfect. Well, good, folks. Thanks for listening. And hopefully you enjoyed this little mashup of some old and some new, and I appreciate you tuning in again. And Jerry, we'll catch up with you soon and figure out what else you guys got in the hopper. So thanks for coming on and really appreciate it.
All right, Kev. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.